childcare, housing, workforce development, broadband. If you wander through our work, you will see ties into the research that the center has done over the years. And our ability to take the research and analysis they have done has really allowed us to be much more effective at Capitol. So to the center, thank you for your years of dedication and partnership on that one. As we look over the past year, we realize that we're all in completely uncharted territories. We're not quite sure what tomorrow's going to be. We're not quite sure what today is. But we know if we have a better understanding as to what's happening on the ground on any given minute, it makes it easier for us to lead our cities and our communities to figure out how do we overcome the challenges that we may have. And so we're fortunate to have Julie Tesh and Marnie Warner from the center today to come talk to us a little bit about the research they've been doing for the past year, looking at the impacts of the pandemic, thinking about the things, what are our city and community leaders needing to have top of mind. And we always try and push these things out to you whenever things come out, but we realize that it might be better for you to hear directly from them today as to what they're seeing, what's happening in the workforce, what's happening in our communities, what's happening on these critical issues for us. So I'm honored to welcome Julie and Marty up to the stage today to talk about the fantastic research they're up to. And we will have time for questions afterwards, so we'll have Kelly and I roaming with microphones afterwards, but we'll do what they can off here.
Good morning, everyone, and I realize I am between research and data is between you and going home. I mean, what a way to end a conference on a Friday in the summer in Alexandria, talking about research. But I can promise you it will be interesting. And so, just to warm you up, to give you just a little bit of, that's not here, I don't know what is. If you have not seen the movie Groundhog Day from 1993, go and see it. It will bring back flashbacks from the last year. Like, you know that every morning you got up and you're like, seriously? You're still stuck in this? Just crazy. So, get my technology down here, maybe. All right. I don't want that again. There we go. I mean, it was great now. So what does that have to do with research? Absolutely nothing. But what does it have to do with the last year? Everything. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen. We still don't know. You know, we think we're out of this pandemic. And now we're finding out, well, maybe not. And so it's, you know, you look at this slide and it's like, what just happened? You're all able to be here today. You're part of this great organization. You probably haven't seen each other in a couple of years, perhaps, and you're asking each other this question of what happened? What did happen? What didn't happen? What changed and what didn't? And I'm going to offer you today that the more things change, the more they stay the same. You're going to find today in our presentation things that you probably already know and things that were happening pre-pandemic. We already had a workforce shortage pre-pandemic. We already had a childcare shortage pre-pandemic. We already had a housing shortage pre-pandemic. We already had issues with healthcare access pre-pandemic. All of these things were happening before COVID hit in our greater Minnesota communities. The difference now is that people are paying attention because they're like, holy cow, I have to stay at home. What am I going, I have kids at home, I don't know what to do. It affects economic development. All of a sudden, people that they're realizing, oh my gosh, if we're going to grow our communities, if we're going to keep our communities doing well, these need to be priorities. These need to not just be things that, oh, that's nice. It would be really nice if we had some child care facilities. It would be really nice if the legislature would do X, Y, Z. No, these are paramount importance to the survival of our communities. So I'm going to talk a little bit today just about, how the pandemic paints a different employment picture in rural Minnesota. And we're a research organization, so we ask research questions. And so the research question that we looked at was before the COVID crisis hit, Minnesota was facing a large worker shortage. How did the pandemic affect the supply of workers? Where were jobs lost and where are workers still needed? Now it's really interesting, obviously we're here at Arrowwood Resort in Alexandria. Things have changed immensely in the last year, even in the last few months. I know you heard Bradley say last night that everyone needs to hightail it out of here because they're sold out tonight. That is fantastic. What a fantastic problem to have. But we all know that there's issues with unemployment and participation in the labor force. And so we've been on a roller coaster, obviously, with unemployment. You can look at this chart. This goes back to January 1st of 2020, and then it goes to the 1st of 2021. And you'll see there in May of 2020, it is broken out by region. Obviously, unemployment was huge, and I know it's hard to see some of those colors, and you can go on our website and download this report. And also, I believe there's things in your folders as well. But you can see here, things have slowly, they peaked, and they're slowly going down. For June, I believe the unemployment rate in Minnesota was at 4%, which is 1.6% below the national average. So Minnesota has always done well with worker participation. But there are two types of unemployment, and we especially know this in the hospitality industry. You know, the ones impacted by the pandemic were the food prep and serving related, those restaurants, things like that. And then also sales and related, because couldn't do anything or do much of anything. Office and admin, and then healthcare. Those are really impacted by the pandemic. But when we're looking at unemployment rates, you need to understand as well that it's impacted by the season. So right now, we do have a higher employment rate because more people are working in the summer. They're doing construction and extraction. They're doing production, transportation and moving. they're here at the resorts, they're working. And so you can see here, again, unemployment isn't actually that far off from where we were pre-pandemic. But the problem is the labor force. We all know that. I'm sure maybe you noticed when you checked into the hotel today, or yesterday, or the day before, there was a little note on the front desk that said, please be patient, we are short-staffed. Those signs are everywhere, and I know all of you in your community see that, and people are asking for extra patience and extra grace because it is hard finding help. And it's not necessarily because people don't want to work. Remember, we only have a 4% unemployment rate. There's a lot of other factors that are playing into this, and our research shows that. So this chart here, or this Venn diagram kind of, you have your employed here on the left, which is, I believe we're at like a 61% employment rate overall in Minnesota right now. And then you have in the middle the actively seeking work. That number does continue to shrink because either they're getting employed or they're just saying, I'm not seeking work anymore. I don't have childcare. I am not being paid enough. I don't have transportation. My job hasn't come back. I want to get paid more. Or I need training and I can't find it. I don't want to do X, Y, Z. And I'm just going to wait this out and see because it is not worth my health. You know, if you are somebody that has immunocompromised, it might not be worth your health. So those not seeking work are, they're dropping out of the labor force. So there are two sides of the impact and the two pools of labor. There's that unemployment that we always talk about, are always talking about, 4% right now, and then dropping out of the labor force. And we're seeing that, just like I said, even more. Again, housing, childcare, transportation, everything that all of you are concerned about in your communities we're seeing that. And it's not, I know we get asked quite a bit, you talk about unemployment benefits there. Well, everyone's getting all of this money, to stay home, blah, 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 blah. Sure, that might be true for some, but the research shows that the majority of people who are dropping out of the workforce actually don't want to. They can't afford to go back to work. They can't, they're waiting for different opportunities. And so I'm very curious to see what happens once unemployment benefits do run out here in September. Because we all know people that, we all have stories of people like, oh, they're not working because they're making more on unemployment. Which I would counter personally, not via research, but personally, if they're making more on unemployment benefits than by working a job, that's a question to ask yourself. What's going on? What needs to happen? Because we want to make sure that people in our communities that want to work are able to function and have a good life in our towns. So there is an opportunity, and of course there's a problem. And I liked the panel previously, Brad, talking about looking at things as opportunities, because obviously this last year we had no clue what we were doing. Absolutely, we didn't know. We're just flying by the seat of our pants. But there's, the pool of labor, there's the unemployed, there's people looking for work, and then there's those individuals who have dropped out of the labor force. But, especially those that have dropped out of the labor force, well, and the unemployed too, but they may lack skills for current opportunities. A lot of people realize in the last year that, again, maybe they're in a minimum wage job. They're at the local gas station, at the Casey's gas station, being a clerk, making minimum wage. Maybe they realize, I want to do something different. I want to do something better. How do I do that? Because I don't have that access. I'm in a small town. I don't have an education. What can I do? And so a lot of the jobs available when you're looking around are jobs that require certification and training or post-secondary education. And they're like, I can't afford it. I don't know what to do. I want to work. I want to do things, but I don't know how. And so that is a huge part of getting people back into the workforce, is figuring out how do we retrain people. Part of our research too found out like the top 5 occupation groups with the highest unemployment rate and the highest number of job postings in 2020, and this is from Northwest Minnesota. So I know we have people here obviously from all over the state, and it is very distinct regionally. What happens in the Northeast in the range is very different than what's going to happen in the Southwest. Very different, but you can see here on the left, the top 5 unemployment occupation groups, again, are food service, construction, production, sales and then healthcare support. But the top 5 occupation groups, job postings, are production, healthcare practitioner and technical, transportation and material moving, sales, and food prep and related. Now you may wonder, why are there so many similarities for unemployment and job postings? Well, a lot of that has to do with training. You know, so if you're looking at healthcare, okay, healthcare support, people were unemployed. I think of in the Mayo Health system. I have a sister who's a nurse in Mankato, and a lot of people in the Mayo Health system they had to take a furlough. But others that were maybe in the office or whatnot, they got laid off. Well, okay, so they're unemployed, but we're lacking practitioners. We're lacking nurse practitioners. We're lacking doctors. So there's that uneven. So you're having to look at occupation and job, career. What is that? And so even food prep and service related. A lot of people lost their jobs in the food prep industry and in the restaurant industry, but yet you come to somewhere like here and they are dying for help. There's a mismatch. There is a huge mismatch, and we need to figure out how to do that. So you can see here we have it listed out by region, and again, you can go on our website and download this, but this is by, and kind of on the left is the rank by the most openings, and then across the top is by region. And so if you look at the number 1 ranked job opening, in the Northwest it's production, Northeast is healthcare practitioners, you know, Central and Southwest is production, 7 county metro is office and admin support, and Southeast is healthcare. And all of this makes sense. If you look at the Southeast, that's Mayo. You know, there's a lot of jobs available in healthcare in the Southeast because that's their economic engine. If you look at the 7 county metro, office and administrative, there's a lot of people that work in offices. They're doing that support work. They're doing, you know, all different things. And so it's all different across the state, but it just depends upon where you're at. So obviously, if you're in the southwest part of the state and you're talking about production, you're talking about production agriculture, you're talking about manufacturing. There's jobs available. You know, if you know anyone who wants to drive truck, send them to any co-op, send them to any construction business, send them anywhere because, you know, we need truckers. We need so many different people. And the workforce shortages, I know you all know this, but the workforce shortages are only increasing. And so unemployment is at 4%, but we continue to have workforce shortages. And if you look here, a majority of the individuals that are currently unemployed were not employed in the sectors that need workers. Again, a mismatch. Again, there's a lot of people who do want to work, they do not have the skills. Again, you're working a minimum wage job with a high school degree at the local Casey's. What are you gonna do? There's a mismatch. And this is just a chart showing that, and it actually goes by, again, on our website, you'll be able to see this much clearer, and I believe in the handout too, but we have this by region, and where the shortages is on the left, and then it has the average hourly wage. And then where the surplus is, and that's the average hourly wage that they pay. So you can just kind of scale that by where you live, because obviously cost of living is very different around the state. So again, make sure to take a look at that. But you'll see there again in the southeast, you know, healthcare. There's a shortage of healthcare, but there's a surplus of food prep. Well, look at the difference in pay, obviously, between healthcare practitioners and food prep. You can look again, even in the Northeast, healthcare in the Duluth area, you know, compared to the construction and extraction, there's a surplus. So take some time to look at that, and you can, again, with our research, what we try to do when we're talking to groups like yourself is we try to put it into bite-sized pieces, but our research goes really in depth, and so we let you go and drill down on it, because I get it, we've all lived through college classes on research, and we need to make it fun and exciting. So, moving on, the pandemic's impact on future jobs. I wish I had a crystal ball, don't we all? You know, but we don't really know what's gonna happen. You know, I think we're coming out of this better than we thought, again, in Minnesota with a 4% unemployment rate. A year ago, I don't know if we would have thought that was possible. And so, you know, we're going in the right direction. But again, there's that shortage versus surplus, and it's going to continue to not align. This is not something that is going to go away once COVID is gone. This is here to stay. We're going to have workforce shortages, and there's going to be those surpluses. And again, exactly what we've been talking about before, it's the mismatch is the biggest problem. And so when you're also looking at communities that are maybe harder to employ, so you're thinking about the previously incarcerated, you're thinking about immigrants and refugees, you're thinking about severe poverty, low-income people, how do we match them up with jobs that are meaningful, that pay well, and that they're trained for? Huge, huge mismatch. There's people out there to work, they don't have the skills to do it. So what are we going to do about that? And DEED is starting to do a lot more work on training and trying to match people. My biggest suggestion to DEED has been, you need to be flexible. Obviously, what works in Little Falls might not work in Red Lake Falls. And you need to allow the communities to be flexible. Because everything, you know, we know how policy works a lot of the time. And there's a mandate from the state. Well, what works, again, in Minneapolis might not work in Mankato. And so there needs to be flexibility. And so we're looking at training and job opportunities and how we're going to fill our workforce. It needs to be flexible. So there's this complexity for the local workforce development. And I know all of you work with your local workforce development coalitions. They're doing yeoman's work, you know, and trying to find those people. But what I've found anecdotally is that a lot of people who are unemployed or dropped out of the workforce, they don't know that these opportunities are available. They don't know. Like if you've completely dropped out of the workforce and you're not signed up for unemployment and you're not having to check in every week, you probably don't know where to go. You don't know that there's these services available. So it's trying to do that outreach of, hey, you know, you hear these people, whether it's at church or wherever, you know, they're out of work for whatever reason, matching them up with some of these opportunities. Because there's so many things, just like with Park and Rec, there's so many things that cities and counties do, but people just don't know about it. And it's hard in this age of information, this information age, it's difficult. But again, the current challenges are connecting workers to the local services. You know, so it's thinking about marketing and how do we get out to those populations. And again, working in immigrant and refugee populations, how do we get that information out there so that they can understand it, so that they feel included. We just did a webinar last week on, that I encourage you to watch. We also have a YouTube channel. But we did a webinar on local greater Minnesota communities and how they work with immigrant and refugee populations. And so we have our latest research study on that with the Humphrey Institute, but then we also had a panel discussion, and we focused on 4 communities in this report: the city of Austin, city of Wilmer, Marshall, and Pelican Rapids. So these are all meatpacking towns that have high immigrant and refugee populations. And so I'm biased, but did a really great research study on how these cities are working with different populations and welcoming them into the community. And I would suggest that you go and look at the city of Austin. They're doing a really good job, I think, of working with some of their newer populations. And so on the webinar last week, we had a gentleman from Austin. He is a refugee. He's been in the country for 7 years. He is a naturalized citizen now. His name is Obala, and he lived in a refugee camp, I forget which country in Africa, but a very long time, and he's on the city council in Austin now. Remarkable man. And he took it upon himself when he came to this country. They moved around. You know, he started, I believe, in was it Baltimore maybe? They moved around a little bit, ended up in Austin. The reason they stayed in Austin is because 1, there's job opportunity, and 2, the community. The community was very helpful. and all of a sudden he's on the city council, but it's because they did very intentional work on, at first, having like an honorary type position on their city council, you know, trying to engage different communities, and then he's like, oh, I'm running for city council, and he's on there, and he's a rock star. And so, you know, connecting with the challenge is connecting to those communities. And then broadband and technology, I always say I am the poster child for bad rural internet. If you do go on our YouTube page and watch some of our webinars, you will see me on our farm in southern Waseca County, and my words do not match my mouth because my internet stinks. And you go 5 miles south and they have full fiber in the country. And it's different companies, different county, different company. You know, I rely on satellite internet, and when it works, it's really nice. But when it doesn't, it really is awful. And one of our staff members, Kelly, we did a retreat a couple of weeks ago for staff, and he's like, oh, what can we improve on? And he's like, you need to get an Ethernet cord or go to town. I'm like, I know. So now I'm going to my aunt's place to do webinars, but I learned this last year, especially working from home, but schools, how many kids did not have access to broadband or any technology? How many kids did not have a laptop or an iPad? You know, I have a niece that is in the Waseca School District, very fortunate that they had money, you know, from different entities that they could provide hotspots for kids. You know, another school district, they had buses going around in the community in order to do homework. And then I'm sure you've heard the stories of, you know, kids going to McDonald's parking lot to do homework, which is really sad. And so we all know this in greater Minnesota. Broadband needs to be infrastructure, plain and simple. But it's a challenge, you know, with workforce. It is a challenge. If we're going to continue to be working towards working from home, if you don't have internet, it's like not having electricity. You're not going to be able to work. Other challenges, obviously timing, and then organizations are stretched thin. You're all stretched thin. You know, you can only do so much in a day. Another issue, obviously, that is huge is childcare. And I was happy to hear at the awards last night you commending legislators for all of their work on childcare. We know that this has been an issue for a long time, and it's great that people are now realizing it. We like to say that we were kind of the canary in the coal mine on this, because Marnie, when did you do your first research paper on this? 2016 is when we first came out with this, and we were the first ones to come out with, hey, childcare is a huge issue here in greater Minnesota, are we going to do something about it? And so Marnie you can come on up. Marnie has done excellent work on research on childcare, and it's great that there's money coming into childcare now from the state. But again, it's a nice patchwork. But I'm going to turn it over to Marnie to talk about what happened in 2020 with childcare.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Marnie Warner, I'm Vice President at the center, and the one who got the job of looking into child care. And I put a bunch of, I started out with this, I put a bunch of slides in here about showing the trends over the last 20 years, but after sitting through the dinner last night, I realized you guys know what's been going on with child care. The thing that we did was that we were just able to put numbers to it. When I first started looking into this in 2015, I would ask people, when I first started looking into this in 2015, it was because one of our board members was saying, look into child care. What's going on with child care? Look into that. And I'm like, okay. And so I started looking into it, and I'm like, this is insane. I started charting the numbers, and you can see them here. The ones diving down below zero are the family child care providers, the in-home providers. And this is showing the capacity. The green lines above zero are the center capacity. And you think, oh, okay, the end of 2000 to the end of 2020, don't pay attention to what the dates say, because Excel wouldn't put them in right. And you go, oh, well, 59% growth in greater Minnesota centers, that's not so bad, that looks okay, but, percentages can be very deceiving. If you look at the top there, you'll see that the net change in family childcare capacity was minus 35,000 spaces in the last 20 years. Center childcare, this is the 59% growth. We only netted 15,000 spaces, so we came out, or only came out with 15,000 spaces ahead. And so for Greater Minnesota, we netted minus 20,000 spaces over the last 20 years. So we're basically losing 1,000 spaces a year. Twin Cities was doing much better, but they still, lost spaces. But the thing was, when I started looking into this, there was this kind of, yeah, we have a problem with childcare. What's going on with that? And when I went and talked to a couple legislators, and one senator, in fact, highly placed senator from the Metro, and I said, what do you want to know about childcare? And he said, I don't care about childcare. We don't have a problem with childcare in my district. And after last year, I thought, I bet you do now. I noticed, yeah, he's paying attention to it more now. So this is why family childcare is so important in rural areas. As you can see, family childcare at the end of 2020 made up 57% of capacity. 2 years ago, it was 66% capacity. So this is how much family childcare we have lost just in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And the same thing in the metro area. And so even though we're growing center capacity, the family capacity has been the backbone of rural Minnesota. And this is just looking a little regionally. You can see that over the last 20 years, every region has lost a certain amount. Only Northwest actually lost some capacity in centers. And I think that did have something to do with 2020, if I remember correctly. But what happened in 2020? We ended 2020 with almost as many providers as we started with. You can see we had a net loss of 4,000 spaces statewide, 15,000 spaces lost in the Twin Cities, so that's 2,500 spaces in Greater Minnesota. The irony of this is that when you look at the past 20 years, 2020 was actually a good year in terms of how much we lost. We were losing, specifically in family child care capacity, between like 2006 and 2016, 2017 or so, we were losing like 2,000 spaces, 3,000 spaces, 4,000 spaces a year, 5,000 spaces a year. And so to lose only 2,500 spaces in a year, or just 4,000 spaces in a year, that was not bad. That was not bad at all. And we gained 1,000 spaces in center child care capacity. So the main thing that happened really was that the providers, they just lost a lot of enrollment. Families were dropping out for various reasons, keeping their kids at home. A lot of it had to do with people were worried about their kids getting sick. People lost their jobs and couldn't afford their child care, and things like that. Enrollment also rose for essential workers who maybe didn't need child care before, but now they did because maybe both parents had to go to work because they were essential workers. The restrictions and regulations created extra expenses for providers. The thing that did help was the emergency grants. They were a lifeline for providers. And I had another slide that talked more about what we learned, but I think I put in the wrong one and we got this one instead. So in our latest report, I had a list of suggestions for things to do to help with child care. And the first one in there was we have to decide what child care is. A lot of the argument that I hear, or the subtext of the argument that I hear, especially at the higher level at the Capitol, is Oh, it has to be all center care, or it all has to be this, or we have to do it this way, or we have to do it that way. And what it boils down to is you have a lot of providers who are trying to run a private business, and you have a lot of regulators who are trying to run it like a school, like a regulated school. And so what you end up with is a lot of underfunded, highly regulated private businesses. And so I think a lot of what would help would be if we could just decide which is it going to be, or can we have space for it to be both? But, let's not try to drive the providers into the ground with all this ambiguity. But, this is about what did we learn from 2020, and I think the big thing we learned was, for one thing, the emergency grants, that cash infusion, that staved off disaster. There were other states, I heard anecdotally that Iowa lost half of its child care capacity last year. And so we fared a lot better than they did, and a lot of it was just because of that infusion of cash. But what that also shows is that there really is that gap between what providers can afford to charge because of their expenses and what families can afford to pay. And that made it, just really painfully clear. The other thing was that it really did just make the shortage painfully clear, especially for people in the metro. When you look at a map of where the shortages are and where there's actual, capacity meets the need, the only place that capacity really meets the need in the state is in the suburbs, in the Twin Cities. And so it just became everybody that this is a problem. And it was like Julie was saying before, it's a communication issue. It's like, I remember from Bemidji was saying, it's a communication issue. The word wasn't getting out there, it wasn't filtering up, people weren't saying it loud enough. And so when we came in, we just started looking into it, and we came in with that data, and, it was like, holy cow, look at this. And we were like, look, we have all this data. And, and people like, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities and Greater Minnesota Partnership, you guys jumped on this right away, and we're doing stuff with it. And I remember one day in the fall, not too long before the session was starting, I got a call from Dan Dorman, and he's saying, yeah, we're getting ready for the session, and we've been talking about childcare all summer because we were very interested in it. And he said, are you guys going to be taking this to the legislature and doing anything with it? And because this is like a big issue that we would really like to work on. We wanted to go to the legislature with this too, and I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't be stepping on your toes. And I'm like, no, this is what the center was created to do, was to provide information and data, because it's one thing to say we have a child care shortage. It's another thing to take that chart that I showed you there at first and say, look, we have a child care shortage. And, and show that to legislators, and like all of a sudden they understand. And so, yeah, this was one of those things that made a really great partnership with us, between us and the coalition. And we're going to continue doing work on child care and looking at the fallout from 2020 and how things might change and might get better because of it, and what we've learned from it. And so,
Reiterating what Marty said with Coalition, I talked about it last night, but being able to provide the accurate research for all of you to use. If you have not looked at our website yet, it's ruralmn.org. It's there for you to use. It's free. It's non-biased, non-partisan. We care about rural. That's all we do, is research on rural. And so, we're getting more and more city and county people using our research. When you're applying for grants, use our research. When you're doing a presentation to XYZ, use our research. We've worked really hard on our search tool on our website because we started in 1997. So we're trying to get our older research queued up and more searchable, but use it. It is there for you to use. It, you know, when I go and meet with, especially whether it's federal or state legislators, you know, they kind of look at you weird when you sit down and you're like, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. And it's like, no, I'm from a nonprofit, I'm here to help. Like, I want you to use our research. Our angle is we don't have an angle. The data is the data. We're going to be honest. And here's what it is. And so use it. We do this for you guys to use. And we have just a couple minutes left, but wanted to just briefly mention housing. And you all know better than I that housing is a huge issue right now. And I just wanted to go through just a couple slides that we had from a couple years ago talking about a normal housing life cycle here. And you'll see here, you know, in your 20s, you know, you're looking more at single or multifamily rent. In your 30s, single family, you're getting your kids. 40s might upgrade to a little McMansion. 50s, the kids are going to college, you might downsize, and then 60s, 70s, assisted living. So you can see that kind of that life cycle what it typically is. But rural is very different. And things have changed considerably also during the pandemic as well. So you know, in your 20s, single or multifamily rent, but few multifamily rentals. And so for those of you that are in large meatpacking or food processing areas, you know that when we have families coming in from different countries, a lot of them are multi-family, they're multi-generational families, and so they don't need just 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, they need 3, 4, or 5 bedrooms. And those are harder and harder to find. For new units, starter homes are almost non-existent now, just because of the cost. And the multifamily units. And there's a few larger homes, but those are for, you know, the ones that can afford it. Townhomes. I'm a huge proponent of townhomes. I don't want to do lawn work. I don't want to deal with snow. I want to have a nice house, live in a community. There's more and more of that, but how do you make that economically feasible? And then the assisted living units, our population is getting older, and so the rural housing life cycle is different, and we all know the costs are going up. You know, when a sheet of plywood costs $90 at Menards, there's an issue, a huge issue. And so, you know, how are we going to tackle that? I'm not sure yet. We need to update our research on this because this is a few years old, but you all know this is a huge problem. And then also the dilapidated housing. When you can't afford to buy plywood or afford to buy goods, how do you update or remodel a house? What is it that you do? So what does the future hold? Well, I don't know. We're entering this Delta variant thing right now, so who knows? I'm curious what will be happening here in the next few months, but wanted to let you know again about our research. In this next year, here's what we're going to be researching, and so we rely on people like you to help us form our research agenda. So every spring we send out a survey asking the city council, commissioners, legislators, publishers of newspapers, what's going on in your area, what's important, what do you need data on? And so this year we're going to be releasing a report on dark stores theory, which has, yeah, I was seeing that, I'm like, anybody? I was talking to AMC last week, or on Monday, and they were like, yes, thank you. I'm like, okay, good, because I had no clue what it was until they started researching it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is crazy. And so that will be coming out September, and the great thing is on some of our research, the more complex research areas, is we do videos. So like 3 to 5 minute videos that you can take and show people. And so again, our YouTube page, go to our YouTube page, we have our webinars up there, but we also have videos on healthcare, childcare, volunteer drivers, what else? And we have a what is rural, cost of living. So use those. But yeah, dark store theory is coming out in September, so look for that. And then also ag land taxes, you know, you could go 10 different ways on that, but we're going to be talking about local taxes on that. Every year we come out with our state of rural, and that is basically talking about what's going on. what's going on, and a lot of data and a lot of what's going on. And then we'll continue our work on immigrants and refugees and local government. Marty's going to be working on childcare solutions. So what's working, what are some ideas out there? And then one I am especially excited for is rural EMS. You all know in greater Minnesota that getting emergency management services is and can be very difficult. And so we're doing some work with the Minnesota Rural Health Association and crunching a lot of numbers, talking to a lot of people and talking about, okay, what needs to be done to make sure that we have adequate access to rural EMS. And so it's a very complex subject. I'm excited for it because it's an issue that goes, it's a silent issue out there. People aren't paying attention to it until you call 911 because somebody had a heart attack and somebody can't get there for a half hour. Or, you know, I tell the story of a woman on the other side of our little town. She had a massive heart attack and the ambulance from 15 miles away got lost and didn't make it in time. She died. You know, what are we going to do about this? Let's figure this out. So this is going to be a starting off point. So we're going to be working on this for a few years. Water infrastructure, obviously, you're all very involved in water infrastructure. And then Marty's also going to be working on mental health and drug use, especially over the pandemic. And it was already a problem, but it's just exemplified itself. Again, go to our website. I encourage you, when you go to our website, you're going to see on the top bar, there's the state of rural, and then there's something called the Atlas over here. If you need specific information on your county or your city, go on there and you can plug it in, all demographics, cost of living, anything and everything you could ever want. We're getting that updated right now. So that is for you to use for free. It is dynamic, so depending on where you're at in the world, on technology, it might take a little bit to download, but please use it. And then also, we do have a podcast called The Center of Everywhere, where we've talked to a few of you in the audience. I know Scott's been a guest a couple times, and we're going to pick that up again in the fall, so please listen to that. We're on Twitter and Facebook. If you have not signed up for our newsletter already, please do. You can do that on our website. We send it out about once every 4 to 6 weeks, just giving you an update on what we're working on and what's going on. And then also wanted to mention, we started a series this last spring called Interconnected, working with the Citizens League. And it's basically, what can we do to better understand each other? Because it's unfortunate that this rural-urban divide continues and is getting wider. But what we did is we had a conversation every month. One was on childcare, one was on healthcare, and the third, I'm blanking, workforce, yes, the three important things. Well, how does it look different? So, you know, childcare in the Twin Cities looks very different than childcare in greater Minnesota, and we got to talk, and it was nice having those discussions and people realizing, oh, we care about the same thing, but we have to come about it from different angles. And so it's nice having those conversations, and so we're going to start those up again in the fall. But there's our email addresses. Please feel free to contact us. We're always happy to talk and listen to your ideas. If you have ideas on something that you feel like this is being a problem, we need some more data on this, please let us know. And we'll see what we can do. My staff, if I add anything else onto them, they will run me out of, well, I don't have a ton of living farm, they will run me off my farm. But, you know, we're at capacity, but please let us know what you're hearing, what you're seeing. I'm here to serve you, here to help you with that information. So with that, are there questions, I guess? Do we have time for questions?
We do have about 5 minutes over questions.
Okay.